My name is Emily Carter, and on most days, people think I have it all figured out. From the outside, it looks that way: sleek navy suit, polished heels clicking against marble floors, and the kind of office view that stretches across the skyline of New York like a painting framed just for me. But appearances are rarely the whole story, aren't they? This morning, as I adjusted the cuff of my silk blouse and sipped the last of my lukewarm coffee, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in months: my mother. A simple call, yet my stomach tightened instantly. Mothers have that effect, especially mine. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came fast, almost rehearsed, as if she'd been waiting for me to pick up. "Emily, we need to talk about the country house. Your father and I are ready to sell. Your brother found an apartment in the city, and the money would really help him settle down." The words landed heavier than I expected. My country house. That's what she called it. But to me, it wasn't just a house. It was the only place I had ever felt rooted, even when life pulled me in every other direction. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass window, staring down at the tiny yellow taxis below, my reflection faint but sharp in the pain. I knew something my parents didn't, something they were about to find out in the most unexpected way. Because they wanted to sell my country house to buy an apartment for my brother. But I had already closed the deal first. I was 22 when the conversation first happened. Back then, I was still living in that old country house, its wooden porch sagging a little at the edges, the paint chipped from too many summers of rain and sun. To me, it was imperfectly perfect. To my parents, it was just property, waiting to be traded for something useful. I remember the evenings so clearly. The kitchen smelled like roasted chicken, and the sound of football played faintly from the living room where my father sat. My mother was stirring gravy, her tone casual but cutting. "Emily, your brother needs a start. He's the one carrying the family name forward. It makes sense to sell the house. You don't even have a stable job. You'll understand someday." The words hit harder than she probably realized. My throat tightened. I swallowed once, twice, trying to keep my voice steady. "So, I don't matter? This house, my memories don't matter?" My father didn't look up from the TV. "It's just a house, Emily. Stop being dramatic. Just a house." As if the walls hadn't held me through nights of crying after college rejections, as if the backyard hadn't been the only place I felt free enough to dream. I remember gripping the edge of the counter, so hard my knuckles turned white. My hands shook, but I refused to let tears fall in front of them. Not again. It was my grandmother who noticed. She had been sitting quietly at the table, knitting as always, her silver hair tucked behind her ears. She reached over, placed a small locket in my palm, and whispered words I never forgot. "Roots don't come from wood or stone, Emily. They come from the courage to stand when no one else believes in you." That night, I sat alone on the porch steps, fingering the locket until the stars blurred above me. The hurt was sharp, but underneath it, a strange kind of fire lit inside me. If they couldn't see my worth, I'd prove it. Not to them, but to myself. And so I made the first decision of my adult life. I would leave. Not just the house, not just the town, but the smallness of their expectations. I would build something they couldn't dismiss. The next morning, with a single suitcase and that locket around my neck, I walked out of the country house. I didn't know where the road would take me, only that I was finally choosing it for myself. New York wasn't kind to me at first. The city swallowed me whole, its streets loud, its people rushed, its nights long and lonely. I rented a room in a crumbling brownstone, the paint peeling off the walls, the radiator groaning louder than my thoughts. Every morning, I woke before dawn, clutching my grandmother's locket as if it were armor. I started with temp jobs, answering phones, typing up invoices, brewing coffee for people who barely remembered my name. Each rejection letter I opened seemed to confirm what my parents had always implied, that I wasn't enough. But still, I kept going. It was at one of those dead-end jobs, in a cramped real estate office, that I met Marianne Cooper. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with a presence that made men twice her size sit straighter. She caught me sketching house designs in the margins of a notepad one slow afternoon. "You've got an eye for structure," she said, glancing at my doodles. Ever thought about real estate investment? I laughed then, because how could a broke 22-year-old even dream of investments? But Marian didn't laugh. She leaned closer. Emily, don't let your bank account define your vision. Learn the game first. The money comes later. She became my mentor. She taught me how to read contracts, how to recognize undervalued properties, how to negotiate without blinking. And she taught me the lesson my parents never had, that my voice had power. The journey wasn't glamorous. There were nights I ate ramen noodles on the floor of my room, nights when doubt pressed so heavily on my chest I thought I might choke on it. But then came the small wins. The first client who trusted me enough to handle their modest sale. The first time a commission check carried more zeros than I'd ever seen on paper. The first key I held in my hand that represented not just a house, but independence. Still, I kept quiet. When my mother called, I let her think I was getting by. When my father asked about work, I said, I'm figuring it out. My brother, of course, barely asked. It was easier that way, letting them underestimate me. What they didn't know was that every late night, every deal I closed, was bringing me closer to one goal, securing my own roots. And eventually the opportunity came. I found out through a colleague that my family's country house was quietly listed for sale. My parents hadn't bothered to tell me. They assumed, perhaps rightly, that I couldn't afford it. But I had been preparing for that moment without even realizing it. I still remember walking into the bank, the weight of years of sacrifice pressing against my shoulders as I signed the papers. The house was mine now, legally, irrevocably mine. I didn't tell a soul. Not yet. The secret felt like a seed I wanted to protect until it bloomed. While my parents continued their plans to help my brother, I built my empire quietly, one deal at a time, one property at a time, until the girl they had dismissed no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who owned her country house outright and more. The day they finally came to see me was a Friday afternoon, unannounced as always. I was in my office downtown, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Manhattan skyline in silver and gold. The desk was sleek oak, polished so well I could see my reflection when I leaned over it. A vase of fresh white lilies sat beside a stack of signed contracts, their fragrance softening the sharp edges of the room. When my assistant buzzed in, "Emily, your family is here," my first instinct was to laugh. Family. That word had always felt complicated. Still, I smoothed the wrinkles out of my blazer, slipped my heels back on, and told her to let them in. They entered hesitantly, like tourists stepping into a cathedral. My mother's eyes darted from the artwork on the walls to the expansive leather chairs, as if trying to measure the cost of everything she saw. My father adjusted his tie nervously, and my brother, Michael, folded his arms with that familiar air of entitlement. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the city below, horns, faint sirens, the endless hum of New York. Then my mother broke the silence. "Emily, you didn't tell us you worked here." I offered a small smile. "You never asked." They sat across from me, their bodies stiff, their faces a cocktail of curiosity and unease. My brother finally leaned forward, voice laced with impatience. "We're here because Mom and Dad are finalizing the sale of the country house. We wanted to give you the courtesy of knowing." My pulse quickened, but my expression remained calm. I let the silence stretch until it grew heavy in the room. Then I slid open the top drawer of my desk and pulled out a slim folder. "You can't sell it," I said evenly, "because you don't own it anymore." "I do." The words hit like glass shattering. My father blinked, my mother gasped softly, and Michael actually scoffed. "What are you talking about? That's impossible." I opened the folder, laying the deed across the desk so they could see the bold black ink of my name, Emily Carter, sole owner. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "You bought it? When?" 3 years ago, I replied, my voice calm but firm. "While you were busy planning Michael's future, I was planning mine." The silence that followed was electric. My father looked as though he'd swallowed his tongue, his pride cracking in front of me for the first time. Michael's face flushed red, anger simmering beneath his disbelief. "You think you're better than us now?" he snapped. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs, every inch of me composed. No, Michael. I don't think I'm better. I just know my worth. Something you were all too quick to dismiss. Their eyes roamed the room again, this time not with curiosity, but with dawning realization. The art, the view, the quiet authority with which I held myself, it all told a story they had never imagined for me. Finally, my mother whispered, almost to herself, "All this time, we thought you were struggling." I met her gaze. "That's because you never cared to ask who I really was becoming. You saw me as weak, disposable, a stepping stone for my brother. But I built this life with my own hands. And I chose not to flaunt it because real strength doesn't need applause." Their shame hung heavy in the room. My father cleared his throat but found no words. My mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. And Michael sat back, defeated for once, his arrogance slipping through the cracks. It was the first time in my life I watched them see me, truly see me, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the woman who had already won. I let the silence breathe before I spoke again, choosing my words with the same precision I used in every negotiation. "You came here expecting to take something from me," I began, my tone steady, almost gentle. "But what you don't realize is that I no longer live in the shadow of your decisions. The house, the life I've built, my success, it's mine. And now, if you want my help, there will be conditions." My mother flinched at the word. My father stiffened, and used to being on the receiving end of terms. Michael just scowled. I folded my hands on the desk. "Let's start with you, Michael. You've been handed everything. Our parents' savings, their sacrifices, their blind loyalty. And yet, you stand here with nothing to show but excuses. If you want stability, you'll earn it. No more coasting. You get a job, you pay your own rent, and you stop depending on others to clean up your messes." His face darkened, but he said nothing. For once, he didn't have a comeback. I turned to my father next. "You taught me strength by ignoring me. You showed me what dismissal feels like. Now I need you to unlearn that habit. If you want a relationship with me, it won't be built on silence and control. You will respect me as your daughter, not as a burden. Words matter, Dad. Use them." His jaw tightened. I saw the shame flicker behind his eyes, though pride kept him from speaking. Finally, my gaze shifted to my mother. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles pale. "Mom, you always believed sacrifice for Michael was love. But love doesn't mean erasing one child to glorify another. If you want me in your life, you need to see me, not just as the daughter who survived without you, but as the woman who deserves your pride as much as he does." Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded faintly, unable to hide the truth anymore. I sat back, letting my words sink in. "These aren't punishments. They're opportunities for all of you. But I won't compromise my boundaries. If you can't accept these terms, then this is where we part ways. I don't need your approval. I never did. But if you want my presence, my trust, even my help, you'll earn it through respect and change." The weight of the room shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the child waiting for their acceptance. I was the woman laying down terms, holding power without cruelty, authority without revenge. Michael glanced at the floor, his jaw tight. My father leaned back, swallowing hard. And my mother, she reached across the table slightly, as if bridging a distance that had stretched for years. In that moment, I realized something vital. I didn't need them to agree right away. The power wasn't in their response. It was in the fact that, finally, I was the one setting the rules. The weeks that followed were quiet at first. I didn't expect change overnight. But little by little, I began to see shifts I had once thought impossible. Michael, for one, finally got a job. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but honest. For the first time, his voice on the phone carried something I had never heard before: humility. He spoke less about what he deserved and more about what he was learning. That alone was progress. My father surprised me most. One Sunday, he called, not my mother, not Michael, but me. His words were clumsy, heavy with pauses, but genuine. "Emily, I'm proud of you." 3 words I had never heard him say before. And though they came decades late, they mattered. As for my mother, she began to soften. She sent me photos of the garden she had replanted at their smaller home, asking if I thought the roses looked as beautiful as the ones that once bloomed by the country house porch. And one evening, she told me quietly, "I should have believed in you sooner." Her voice trembled with regret, but also with love. And me? I walked through the halls of the country house one crisp autumn morning, the sunlight spilling across the old wooden floors. It smelled like home, like earth and leaves and memory. In my hand, I held my grandmother's locket, worn smooth from years of holding it close. Her words echoed inside me. "Roots don't come from wood or stone, Emily. They come from the courage to stand when no one else believes in you." I smiled, finally understanding. The house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was proof that I had stood tall when no one else thought I could. Proof that I had written my own story. As I closed the locket and slipped it back around my neck, I whispered to the silence of the house, to my grandmother's memory, and maybe even to the girl I once was, "I am home, and I always will be."